Short on Pearl, it's a look at the day's stories in NBC Nightly News. Stay with us.
America and around the world as Donald Trump defies the polls and the pundits again. A dramatic triumph as the brash billionaire turned reality star is elected the 45th president of the United States.
I say it is time for us to come together as one united people.
For Hillary Clinton, one of the most stunning defeats in American political history.
Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country.
The candidate and her campaign so confident victory was in their grasp. What happened? We have exclusive details inside Trump's planning, plus the immediate impact of his policies at home and abroad. Tonight, Americans divided from euphoria to outright fear. How does this country come together? Nightly News begins right now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. We've learned that even as the first polls were closing last night, not even the Trump camp saw what was coming. The stunning victory that slowly unfolded before the eyes of the world, starting with Florida, and over the next several hours, overwhelming Hillary Clinton's blue wall. The latest vote totals show Trump winning with 279 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 228, though Clinton holds a narrow lead in the popular vote. Trump delivered his acceptance speech in the wee hours of this morning, followed late this morning by Hillary Clinton, who publicly conceded the race and acknowledged the pain as she wished Trump well. Tonight, inside victory and loss, and what comes now 71 days before Donald Trump is sworn in as this country's 45th president. Our expanded coverage begins with NBC's Katie Tur.
Introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
At 2:50 this morning, Donald Trump did what so many said could never happen.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign.
His protest candidacy is now a protest presidency. The billionaire giving voice to those who felt voiceless, suppressed frustration with globalization, immigration, and the other, unleashing itself in a roar that turned this country's electoral map from blue to red.
We have the greatest movement ever put together in this country.
Propelled by turnout in white rural America, breaking Clinton's blue wall in the upper Midwest. Trump proving enthusiasm was more important than ground game, political infrastructure, and money.
USA!
Winning because of, not despite, his often crass honesty. Still, the victory came as a surprise even to the campaign. Going into Election Day, NBC News has learned from campaign sources, Team Trump's internal data had him losing. But that changed. At 10:59, cheers from the soon-to-be victory party. Fox News called Florida, Trump's campaign seeing the momentum shift right alongside the nation. By 1:36 a.m., when the Associated Press called Pennsylvania, they knew they had it.
85,000 people there at a county fair. And, you know, the big question for the media sometimes, but will they vote? They voted.
Today, the now president-elect was holed up at Trump Tower, planning. Campaign sources say Trump was too superstitious to talk transition before he won, leaving his aides to muse about cabinet positions. Rudy Giuliani as Attorney General, Newt Gingrich, Secretary of State, Reince Priebus, Chief of Staff. A Trump campaign source cautions roles could change once Trump has his say.
Sexually assaulting women!
Going forward, the hard work of coming together. The country is sharply divided. Many wondering if the Trump they saw on stage last night.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division.
The presidential Trump he promised Lester Holt is the President Trump America will get for the next 4 years.
I want to be different. When you're president, you act in a different way. There's no question about that. And I would do that.
Tomorrow, Donald Trump goes to the White House to meet with the president. The two men have a lot to overcome. Perhaps a mirror, Lester, for what is to come for this country.
Katie, thanks very much. And for Hillary Clinton and her campaign, it was an outcome so unexpected, so shocking, she didn't come out overnight, instead calling Donald Trump to concede, then waiting until late this morning before addressing her supporters and the nation. We get more on that from NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
After weeks of speculation over whether Donald Trump would concede to Hillary Clinton, it was Clinton this morning delivering the speech she never thought she'd have to give.
Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
Surrounded by staff and supporters, some in tears, including Huma Abedin, Clinton fighting to keep her own emotions in check.
I'm sorry that we did not win this election for the values we share and the vision we hold for our country.
This was clearly the most difficult moment of Hillary Clinton's political life. Not only conceding, but conceding to Donald Trump. Difficult for President Obama, too, for whom defeating Trump was so personal, his staff watching in shock.
The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. And over the next few months, we are going to show that to the world.
Tonight, the candidate and her campaign reeling. Up until the last moment, they thought they'd win. 6 p.m. election night, poised for a victory celebration, aides describing the mood as confident. By midnight, the campaign no longer returning calls. Supporters watching it all slip away in disbelief. At 2 a.m., this awkward moment. Campaign chairman John Podesta telling supporters not to give up hope.
We can wait a little longer, can't we? We're still counting votes, and every vote should count.
While only minutes later, Clinton called Trump to concede. Tonight, the question for the president and Democrats. With the Clinton machine's advantages of money, ground game, and star power, how did they lose an election they thought was a sure thing? Armchair quarterbacks blaming Clinton's use of that personal server, those embarrassing hacked emails, and the FBI director's October surprise. Today, Clinton's message to young people.
You will have successes and setbacks too. This loss hurts, but please never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it. I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now.
Comforting staff and friends, even as Bill Clinton put on a brave face before heading home, marking what could be the end of the Clintons in politics.
And now Clinton shares a sad legacy with Al Gore, who is just campaigning with Hillary Clinton in Florida, the two Democratic candidates who won the popular vote, but not the presidency. Lester?
Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, thanks very much. We want to take a closer look now at one of the major deciding factors in Trump's victory, the white vote in rural America, a slice of the country whose strength many underestimated as they made a mockery of the polls, fueling this incredible upset. With more on that, we turn to NBC's Kevin Tibbles in Michigan.
In the American heartland, farmers like Aaron Kate are back at work, just one day after they say their voice and their vote was finally heard.
What's the message people like you sent?
I sense we've been forgotten in the last 8 years.
So important was Middle America to Trump, his final campaign event was a raucous gathering of 4,000 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Last night, local Republicans in this county of city and country celebrated.
I think we're going to look back in the records, look back in history and say history was made tonight.
It was the rural vote in the small towns of states like Michigan and Pennsylvania that helped push Trump over the top, with issues like jobs, health care, and big government.
More white voters in rural Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin went for Trump than they did for Mitt Romney 4 years ago. This coupled with the fact that Hillary supporters in certain demographics did not turn out in the same way they did for President Obama.
You know, I'd like to see us get back into business like we're supposed to be.
Smaller government, less regulations. That means more jobs and more money for the American people to spend.
Aaron Cates sees himself as helping to feed the country. He says he doesn't need any more baggage from Washington.
That's one thing I do hope, is we can get the government out of our lives and let us do what we do best.
And you think Trump will do that?
I think he's a good start.
Voters in rural America say they're ready to roll up their sleeves. Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Saranac, Michigan.
As you might expect, the impact of the American election is reverberating around the world tonight. There are concerns among some foreign leaders about how Donald Trump might view America's traditional role in world affairs. But there are also plenty of congratulations being extended to the president-elect, including those of Vladimir Putin. We get details from our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel.
Donald Trump is the president-elect of the United States.
There were gasps around the world, headlines, Trumpocalypse, and disunited states. There are echoes of the Brexit vote, too, against the European Union establishment. But deeper concerns tonight that the world's shining light of democracy has gone dark.
You cannot look at President Trump and call the American president the leader of the free world, because America has increasingly abdicated its legitimacy to that title.
Those welcoming the most were right-wing parties who rushed to embrace Trump as their new hero. He's like me, joked the Filipino president, accused of turning his police into anti-narco death squads. Egypt's General Sisi, who came to power in a coup, bragged that he was the first foreign leader to congratulate Trump. And Hungary's Viktor Orban, who did wall off his country to keep out refugees, called Trump great news. And of course, Russia's Vladimir Putin.
I would have a very, very good relationship with Putin, and I think I would have a very, very good relationship with Russia.
Putin said today he's ready to open a new chapter with the U.S.
They see in Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, somebody that they can do business with. There will be a honeymoon period for sure.
On foreign affairs, Trump is considered unpredictable, stoking fears that, at least initially, his presidency could usher in global instability. Lester?
Richard Engel tonight. Richard, thanks. Let's bring in our political director, the moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, we keep talking about this political earthquake. People saying they want change in Washington. Some have put it, we want to take our country back. Drill down for me.
Look, what this really is this economic insecurity that's happened out there. These are the folks that feel a bit left behind. They feel as if government is looking out for the families of undocumented immigrants, but they're not looking out for them who feel as if their jobs have disappeared. So it's this feeling of they don't feel they've been prioritized by the political and establishment in Washington. The question is going to be, can Trump deliver for them? You know, they left the Democratic Party in part because they felt like the Democratic Party didn't deliver. Trump's made a lot of promises. Can he deliver? The onus and the burden is on them, but that's what this is about ultimately. They feel as if they've been glossed over. I mean, look at the way we sometimes describe it ourselves. Flyover country. As if they're just sort of in the way, on our way to the West Coast type of thing. I think that whole feeling that they were just disrespected and not prioritized.
All right, and you talk about fulfilling the promise. This is where we're going to go to next. Still ahead, Trump's agenda, his first orders of business when he enters the White House, the potential impact and everything from the Supreme Court to Obamacare to his long-promised border wall. Also, after such a bitterly divided election, can America come together and stand united? President-elect Trump's agenda. After raising expectations of dramatic change in Washington, millions of supporters are expecting action and quickly. NBC's Hallie Jackson has a look at the potential sweeping changes ahead.
It's going to be a beautiful thing.
So Donald Trump won. Now what? Propelled by the power of a Republican-controlled Congress, his victory all but assures a more conservative Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court, it's what it's all about.
And his presidency guarantees the biggest battle yet over Obamacare.
Real change begins with immediately repealing and replacing Obamacare. It's a disaster.
Those campaign promises, realistic. Others, not so much.
We will build a great wall along the southern border.
His Mexican-funded border wall, unlikely. His temporary proposed Muslim ban, unpopular. Trump already signaling he won't take such a hardline stance on it. But some of his promises show a serious split with his own party on policy, disagreements on trade, and on Russia. The parliament in Moscow today celebrating Trump's election. Vladimir Putin sending a congratulatory telegram. Despite the divide, evidence already today of Republicans coming together.
He just earned a mandate, and we now just have that unified Republican government.
Support? Sure, but not a slam dunk. At least 8 Republican senators said they voted against Trump. On one hand, his promise to end corruption in Congress. On the other, an agenda that needs help from the very system he says he hates.
To get anything done, he needs to bring, to have them support him.
He does. He's going to need the Congress and the Republicans who he blasted again and again. They are now going to be his most important allies.
There is plenty that Donald Trump can do all on his own. He's already promised to roll back President Obama's executive actions on immigration and climate change. No need for congressional approval there, Lester.
All right, Hallie, thank you. When we come back here tonight, they're going from the penthouse to the White House, getting to know America's new first family. Just a couple of months, the White House will be home to a first family, perhaps unlike any that has ever lived there. NBC's Cynthia McFadden has a look at the soon-to-be occupants of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the Trumps.
Donald Trump marches to the beat of his own drum, surrounded by a small band of intimates, many of whom he's related to. He thanked them last night.
I love you and I thank you. This was tough. This was tough.
And while they're not a traditional family, Melania's his third wife and the kids have 3 different mothers, a first in presidential history, there is clearly a deep bond between them.
You can't fake good kids. How about his amazing children? Aren't they something?
The glamorous Mrs. Trump speaks 5 languages, grew up behind the Iron Curtain, and will be only the second First Lady to be born abroad since Louisa Adams. She is not the first model to fill the role of First Lady. Both Pat Nixon and Betty Ford were models too, though more demure. What does history tell us about the role that Melania Trump might play?
History usually says that a first lady comes into this job, and by the time she leaves, she's a very different person doing things that she never imagined.
And Mr. Trump has said many times he will turn over his business to his 3 oldest children while he's in the White House.
I have Ivanka and Eric and Don sitting there. Run the company, kids. Have a good time.
But he's also implied he might call on them for his administration.
Everybody would say, put Ivanka in, put Ivanka in.
But family appointments are tricky. A 1967 law prohibiting nepotism was passed after Robert Kennedy served as the Attorney General for his brother. The White House will again have a child in residence, 10-year-old Barron, who is the same age as Malia Obama was when she moved in. So goodbye 3-story penthouse in Trump Tower and hello White House. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News, New York.
When we come back, America has come together after turbulent elections in the past. Can it do it again? their speeches after the votes were counted, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton said it's time to unite the country. But that may be easier said than done after this long campaign left so many feeling angry and divided. Our Harry Smith takes a look at how America can begin to heal after the most contentious election of our time.
So much for polls and pundits. Funny things happen sometimes in big games and elections and real life. There is a momentum shift. So today, half the electorate is elated and the other half is on edge. We've endured 18 months of partisan rancor, but today President Obama said it's time to look at the big picture.
We're actually all on one team. We're not Democrats first, we're not Republicans first. We are Americans first.
Back in 2000, after more than a month of hanging chads and legal wrangling, Al Gore conceded the election to George Bush.
This is America, and we put country before party. We will stand together behind our new president.
What's best for the country can be a bitter pill. Yesterday, people waited in line for hours to vote. There was a buzz in polling places. That's how it's supposed to be. And while Donald Trump scorched the earth with his rhetoric on his way to victory, there was none of that early this morning.
It is time for us to come together as one united people.
In fact, there was a very different tone.
Hillary has worked very long and very hard over a long period of time, and we owe her a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country.
This was a different Trump, humbled perhaps, awed maybe by the magnitude of what lies ahead. This peaceful transition of power goes back to our earliest history. We change governments with ballots, not bullets. We, the people, decide. And when the counting is done, we move forward. Harry Smith, NBC News, New York.
That will do it for us on this Wednesday night. Nightly News continues now with another half hour of coverage on most of our stations. For others, it will be streamed live on our website. I'm Lester Holt. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching and good night.